The truth is, I always thought of Grandma Aurora as an open book. Her life, spread out like a well-loved quilt, each patch of memory stitched together with laughter and the occasional easily soothed tear. Her eyes, the color of a summer sky just after a rain shower, held no secrets, or so I believed. Her hands, roughened by years of gardening and baking, were always ready with a hug that could mend any childhood scrape, any teenage heartbreak. She was sunshine and freshly baked bread, the comforting scent of lavender sachets tucked into drawers, the gentle hum of a lullaby, sung in a voice that never wavered, even as time etched its marks upon her face. She was my anchor, my confidant, my unwavering North Star. Now, as I sit here, surrounded by the quiet aftermath of her passing, the silence in her sun-drenched kitchen heavier than any storm cloud, I realize how profoundly wrong I was. The book, it turns out, had a hidden compartment, the secret chapter locked away, waiting to be discovered. And I, her devoted granddaughter, was about to turn the page on a life I never knew existed. It happened quite by accident, as most important discoveries do. I was sorting through her belongings, carefully packing away the remnants of a life well lived. There were the hand-knitted scarves, each stitch a testament to her patience and love. The worn cookbooks, their pages stained with the sweet evidence of countless family meals. The photographs, capturing moments frozen in time, faces smiling back from a bygone era. Each object a tangible link to the woman I adored. I came across an old wooden box, tucked away in the back of her closet, beneath a pile of moth-eaten blankets. It wasn't particularly remarkable, just a simple, unadorned box. The wood darkened with age, the latch rusted and stiff. I almost dismissed it, thinking it contained nothing more than old letters or forgotten trinkets. But something, a whisper of intuition perhaps, urged me to open it. With a gentle tug, the latch gave way and the lid creaked open, revealing its contents. Nestled inside, amongst faded ribbons and dried flowers, was a diary. Not the kind you buy in a store with lined pages and a pretty cover. This was something different. It was bound in worn leather, the color of rich earth, and the pages were yellowed with age, their edges brittle and frayed. The leather felt soft beneath my fingertips, strangely warm, as if it held a life of its own. My heart skipped a beat. I knew instinctively that this was something significant, something that would change everything I thought I knew about Grandma Aurora. This wasn't just a diary, it was a portal into a hidden world, a secret life she had kept carefully guarded, even from me. The first page was dated 1938. The handwriting was elegant and flowing, but there was a tremor in the strokes, a hint of vulnerability that tugged at my heart. The words were written in a language I didn't immediately recognize, a flowing script that seemed both familiar and foreign. It looked like French. I closed the diary, my hands trembling. A wave of conflicting emotions washed over me. Curiosity, of course, but also a profound sense of unease. What secrets did this diary hold? What truths had Aurora kept hidden? Was I ready to confront them? I sat there for a long time, the diary resting in my lap, the weight of its untold stories heavy in my hands. The silence in the room seemed to deepen, amplifying the frantic beating of my heart. The sunlight streaming through the window seemed to dim, casting long shadows across the room. I thought about Aurora, about her unwavering optimism, her boundless capacity for love, her quiet strength. How could someone so seemingly transparent have harbored such a secret? The answer, I knew, lay within the pages of that diary, and I couldn't ignore it. I owed it to her, to myself, to uncover the truth, no matter how painful it might be. Taking a deep breath, I opened the diary again, this time determined to decipher its sequence. I knew enough French from my school days to recognize some basic words, enough to understand that this wasn't just a chronicle of daily events. This was a story of love and loss, of courage and sacrifice, of a life lived against the backdrop of a world teetering on the brink of war. As I began to translate the faded words, a picture began to emerge, a picture of a young woman full of dreams and aspirations caught in the cross currents of history. A woman who faced unimaginable challenges with unwavering resolve. A woman who loved with a passion that defied all boundaries. This was not the Grandma Aurora I knew, This was a different woman altogether. A woman whose life had been shaped by events I could only imagine. A woman who had kept her secrets hidden for decades, protecting them with a fierce determination. And the more I read, the more I realized that this diary wasn't just about Aurora's past. It was about my family's legacy, about the sacrifices that had been made to ensure our survival. It was about a forbidden love, a lost treasure, and a dark secret that had been passed down through generations. The air in the room grew colder, as if the ghosts of the past were gathering around me, eager to tell their stories. I felt a chill run down my spine, a sense of foreboding that I couldn't shake. I knew that this journey would not be easy, that it would lead me down unexpected paths, forcing me to confront uncomfortable truths. But I also knew that it was a journey I had to take, because within these pages lay the key to understanding not only my grandmother's life but also my own, the key to unlocking the secrets of my family's past and embracing the legacy that had been entrusted to me. I am about to share with you the extraordinary story of Grandma Aurora, a story of a forbidden love, a lost treasure, and a dark secret that spans generations. It's a story of resilience in the face of unimaginable hardship, a testament to the enduring power of love and the sacrifices we make for those we cherish. Join me as we delve into the hidden pages of her diary and uncover the truth behind her remarkable life. And if you're intrigued by stories of hidden legacies and enduring love, be sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel so you can join me on this incredible journey as we uncover the dark secret behind Grandma's fortune. Here it is. The attic dust swirled around me, illuminated by the weak afternoon sun filtering through the grimy window. It danced, mocking my solitude, as I clutched the worn leather diary. Grandma Aurora's secrets, locked away for so long, were about to be revealed. I took a deep breath, the scent of old paper and forgotten memories filling my lungs, and began to read. The first entry was dated June 12, 1937, Willow Creek. Just the name conjures up the scent of sun-baked earth and the lazy buzz of honeybees. It was a place where time seemed to slow to a crawl, where the biggest excitement was the annual county fair, and the most pressing concern was whether the corn would yield a good harvest. In those days, before the world erupted, it was a pocket of peace nestled in the heart of the countryside. And there, in that pocket of peace, lived a young woman named Aurora, my Aurora. I see her now, a girl barely 17, with hair the color of ripened wheat and eyes that held the vastness of the summer sky. She wasn't considered beautiful in the conventional sense. Her nose was a bit too long, her chin a bit too strong. But she possessed a quiet grace, an inner light that shone from within, captivating anyone who took the time to truly see her. Aurora wasn't like the other girls in Willow Creek. While they dreamed of marrying a farmer's son and settling down to raise a family, Aurora dreamed of faraway lands, of bustling cities and towering mountains. She devoured books, losing herself in tales of adventure and romance, of explorers charting unknown territories and artists capturing the beauty of the world on canvas. The local library was her sanctuary, the scent of aged paper and leather a comforting balm to her restless soul. A family was the bedrock of her world. Her parents, Martha and Samuel, were salt-of-the-earth people, their hands calloused from years of hard work on their small farm. They weren't demonstrative with their affection, but their love was evident in the way they looked at each other, in the way they always made sure Aurora and her siblings had enough to eat, even when times were lean. Thomas, her older brother, was a dreamer in his own right, though his dreams took to the sky. He was obsessed with airplanes, spending hours poring over aviation magazines and building model planes from scraps of wood. He yearned to be a pilot, to soar above the clouds and see the world from a different perspective. Aurora admired his ambition, his unwavering focus on his goals. She knew that one day he would leave Willow Creek and make his mark on the world. Lily, her younger sister, was a different kind of dreamer. She saw poetry in everything, in the way the sunlight dappled through the leaves, in the way the wind whispered through the cornfields. She had a delicate, artistic soul, and Aurora often found her sketching in her notebook, capturing the beauty of their surroundings with her charcoal pencils. Aurora felt fiercely protective of Lily, sensing her vulnerability and her sensitivity to the world's harshness. Their days were governed by the rhythm of nature. Mornings began before sunrise, with the crowing of the rooster and the smell of freshly brewed coffee. Aurora would help her mother with the chores, feeding the chickens, collecting the eggs, and milking the cows. The work was hard, but it was also satisfying, a connection to the land and to the generations who had toiled before them. Afternoons were spent at school, a small one-room schoolhouse where all the children in Willow Creek learned together. Aurora excelled in her studies, her mind sharp and inquisitive. She loved history and literature, soaking up knowledge like a sponge. But even as she learned about the world beyond Willow Creek, she felt a growing sense of unease, a feeling that she was somehow missing out on something. Evenings were a time for family. After dinner, they would gather around the fireplace, reading aloud from books or playing board games. Samuel would tell stories of his youth, of hunting and fishing in the nearby woods. Martha would knit, her fingers moving deftly, creating warm blankets and sweaters for the family. And Aurora would listen, her heart filled with a mixture of love and longing. The nights were magical. The stars blazed in the inky sky, unpolluted by city lights. Aurora would often lie awake in her bed, gazing out the window, imagining herself traveling to those distant worlds. She felt a pull, a yearning for something more than Willow Creek could offer. She couldn't articulate it, not even to herself, but she knew that her destiny lay somewhere beyond the horizon. She felt a strange contrast within herself. While she loved her family and the familiar comforts of Willow Creek, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was meant for something more. It wasn't that she was unhappy, not exactly. It was more like a quiet discontent, a subtle ache in her soul. She felt like a bird, trapped in a gilded cage, admiring the beauty of her surroundings, but longing to spread her wings and fly. This feeling intensified with each passing year. As her friends began to pair off and plan their futures in Willow Creek, Aurora felt increasingly isolated. She couldn't imagine herself settling down, raising a family, and living out her days in the same small town. She needed to experience the world, to see new places, to meet new people. She needed to find her own path, even if it meant leaving behind everything she had ever known. She confided to Lily, her younger sister, who understood her restlessness. Lily, with her poet soul, saw the fire in Aurora's eyes, the yearning for something more. She encouraged Aurora to follow her dreams, to not let the expectations of others hold her back. "You were meant for more than this, Aurora," she would say, her voice filled with conviction. Don't let Willow Creek clip your wings. But even with Lily's support, Aurora felt torn. She didn't want to hurt her family, to disappoint them by leaving. She knew that they loved her and that they wanted her to be happy. But she also knew that she couldn't live a life that wasn't true to herself. She needed to find a way to balance her love for her family with her own aspirations. As the summer of 1937 drew to a close, Aurora found herself at a crossroads. She could stay in Willow Creek, living a comfortable, predictable life, or she could take a leap of faith, venturing out into the unknown, risking everything for the chance to fulfill her dreams. The choice was hers, and she knew that it would shape the course of her life forever. The seeds of change were sown, the air was still and calm, but the storm clouds were gathering, unnoticed on the horizon. And Aurora, with her head full of dreams and her heart full of longing, stood on the precipice, unaware of the trials and tribulations that lay ahead. The quiet before the storm, that's what it was, a deceptive peace that would soon be shattered. Here it is then, child. The storm is coming, even to Willow Creek. I suppose it always does in one form or another. We were so young, so innocent, basking in the late summer sun of those days. But even the brightest sun casts a shadow, doesn't it? The first whispers of the war were like distant thunder, barely audible at first. They came over the radio, crackling news reports interrupting our favorite music. At first, it was just a European affair, something happening far away, across the ocean. We'd huddle around the wireless in Mr. Abernathy's general store, listening to the pronouncements with a mixture of curiosity and detachment. The men would puff on their pipes, discussing strategy in politics as if it were a game of checkers. The women, my mother included, would exchange worried glances, their hands instinctively reaching for the aprons tied around their waists. A silent gesture of domestic protection against a world gone mad. Thomas, Bless his adventurous heart, was practically buzzing with excitement. He devoured newspaper articles, charting the movements of armies and ships with an almost gleeful enthusiasm. He saw it as a grand adventure, a chance to prove his mettle, to be a hero. He'd strut around the farmyard pretending to fire a rifle, his youthful bravado masking a deeper yearning for something more than the quiet life we knew. He spoke of joining the Royal Canadian Air Force. My parents, of course, were terrified. My father, usually a man of few words, would grit Thomas's shoulder, his eyes pleading with him to reconsider. My mother would simply weep, her silent tears a more powerful argument than any words. For me, the war was initially a confusing concept. I couldn't quite grasp the scale of it, the sheer brutality. It seemed like a story from a history book, something that happened to other people in other times. But slowly, the reality began to seep in. The rationing began, sugar and butter becoming precious commodities. We knitted socks and scarves for the soldiers, our needles clicking a mournful rhythm in the evenings. The boys I knew, the ones I'd grown up with, started disappearing, one by one, signing up for service, their faces flushed with a mixture of fear and patriotic fervor. The dances at the community hall became less frequent, the music less joyous, the laughter tinged with a nervous edge. My romantic notions, the dreams of a fairy tale wedding and a life of simple happiness, began to feel fragile, threatened by an unseen force. I started questioning everything, the fairness of the world, the purpose of suffering. Why should these young men, barely more than boys, be sent to fight and die in a war they didn't understand? Why should innocent people suffer? The questions swirled in my mind, unanswered, unsettling. I spent hours sitting by the creek, watching the water flow, searching for some kind of solace in the natural world. But even the beauty of Willow Creek seemed tainted by the shadow of war. Then you right. It was a late afternoon in the spring, the air thick with the scent of lilacs and freshly turned earth. I was walking home from school, lost in my thoughts, when I saw him. He was standing by the old oak tree at the edge of our property, a lone figure in a military uniform, his back to me. Even from a distance, he radiated an aura of quiet intensity. He wasn't like the other boys who had left for the war. They were boisterous, eager to prove themselves. He was different. There was a weariness in his stance, a haunted look in his eyes that belied his youth. As I drew closer, he turned, and our eyes met. His were the color of the stormy sea, deep and fathomless. He had a strong jaw, a slightly crooked nose, and a smattering of freckles across his cheeks. He wasn't classically handsome, but there was something compelling about him, a raw, untamed quality that drew me in. "Hello," he said, his voice a low, melodic rumble. "I'm looking for the McLeod farm." "You found it," I replied, my heart suddenly pounding in my chest. "I'm Aurora McLeod." "Elias," he said, extending his hand. "Elias Thorne." His hand was warm and calloused, his grip firm. As our fingers touched, a spark seemed to pass between us, an electric current that jolted me to my core. It was a feeling I had never experienced before, a strange mixture of excitement and trepidation. He explained that he was a friend of Thomas's, that they had met during training. Thomas had mentioned that Elias could stay with us for a while. My parents, after some initial hesitation, agreed. There was something about Elias that put them at ease, a quiet politeness that belied a deeper sadness. But I knew, deep down, that there was more to Elias than he was letting on. He rarely spoke of his past, and when he did, his answers were vague and evasive. He spent hours alone in the barn, tinkering with old machinery, his brow furrowed in concentration. He received letters with foreign scents, addressed in a handwriting I didn't recognize. He seemed to be constantly on edge, as if he were waiting for something, or someone. The truth was, Elias wasn't just a friend of Thomas. He was a soldier on a secret mission, sent to Willow Creek for reasons he couldn't reveal. He carried a burden of knowledge, a weight of responsibility that threatened to crush him. He was a man caught between duty and desire, between the darkness of war and the light of a love he never expected to find. And I, drawn to his enigmatic charm, his quiet strength, was about to be swept into his world, a world of danger and deception where love was a luxury we couldn't afford. I was young, naive, blinded by the first flush of infatuation. I didn't realize that Elias's arrival was not a coincidence, but a carefully orchestrated event that would change my life forever. I didn't know that loving him would mean risking everything, including my own life. But I was about to find out. The storm was brewing, and I was standing right in its path. The diary became my confidant, its pages absorbing the secrets that threatened to burst from my chest. Elias and I met under the cloak of twilight, stolen moments in the abandoned orchard beyond the town limits. The scent of decaying apples hung heavy in the air, a bittersweet fragrance that mirrored the stolen sweetness of our encounters. Each meeting was a gamble, a dance with danger. But the warmth of his hand in mine, the light in his eyes, banished the fear, at least for a little while. He told me stories of his life before the war, of his passion for science, his dreams of a world healed by innovation, not torn apart by hatred. He spoke of his mentor, a brilliant clockmaker named Herr Schmidt, who had instilled in him a love for precision and the belief that even the smallest cog could alter the course of history. And then, one evening, under the pale light of a sliver moon, he revealed the truth. He wasn't just a deserter hiding from the war. He was a scientist, a physicist, who had once worked for the German war machine. But he had witnessed firsthand the horrors they were capable of, the potential for unimaginable destruction that lay dormant within their research. He couldn't be a part of it. He deserted, taking with him a secret, a piece of information so vital that it could change the entire course of the war. "It's not a weapon, Aurora," he explained, his voice hushed, almost reverent. "It's an encryption device, a key. It can decipher their most complex codes, expose their plans, cripple their efforts. Herr Schmidt designed it, knowing its power. He hid it before they could force him to use it for their gain. My mission is to find it and deliver it to the Allies." He paused, his gaze searching mine. "It's here in Willow Creek. Herr Schmidt left clues, a series of riddles that lead to its location." Fear coiled in my stomach, cold and constricting. This was bigger than I could have ever imagined. This wasn't just about a runaway soldier. It was about the fate of the world. And I, Aurora, a simple girl from a quiet town, was now entangled in it. The diary filled with my anxieties. Elias trusts me. He believes I can help him. But what if I fail? What if I lead them to him, to us? I never wanted this. I only wanted to be happy. Then the first signs appeared. Strangers arrived in Willow Creek, men with hard eyes and clipped accents, asking seemingly innocent questions about newcomers, about anyone who might be different. They frequented the diner, lingering over their coffee, watching everyone came and went. They strolled through the town square, their gazes sweeping over the buildings, the faces, the very cobblestones beneath their feet. A chilling sense of paranoia settled over the town. Whispers replaced open conversation. Doors were locked earlier and curtains were drawn tighter. Elias grew more cautious, our meetings becoming rarer, more hurried. He was convinced that the Nazi agents were closing in, that they knew he was in Willow Creek searching for the artifact. He needed to find it quickly. One afternoon, while helping Mrs. Abernathy clean the old church, I noticed Elias studying the intricate carvings on the ancient oak door leading to the crypt. He was tracing the pattern with his finger, his brow furrowed in concentration. "Herr Schmidt was a clockmaker, Aurora," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "He loved puzzles, hidden mechanisms. He wouldn't just hide something. He would conceal it within something else, something ordinary." Suddenly, I remembered something my grandfather used to say about the church, a local legend passed down through generations. He had spoken of a labyrinth beneath the church, a network of tunnels built by the original settlers as a refuge from hostile tribes. He always dismissed it as a fanciful tale, but now, looking at Elias, they wondered. "Elias," I said, my heart pounding in my chest, "there's a story about tunnels beneath the church, a labyrinth." His eyes widened. "A labyrinth? That could be it." Herr Schmidt knew I loved mazes. He used to challenge me with intricate puzzles. Together, we explored the church, searching for any clue that might lead to the entrance of the labyrinth. We examined the stained glass windows, the altar, the baptismal font, but nothing seemed to fit. Then, Elias noticed something. The clock in the church tower, an antique timepiece that had been silent for decades, had a peculiar inscription on its face. "Tempus fugit veritas manet." Time flies, truth remains. Elias recognized it as one of Herr Schmidt's favorite phrases. He examined the clock closely, its fingers tracing the inscription. He discovered a hidden panel behind the clock face. Inside, the small, intricately carved key rested on a bed of velvet. "This is it," he breathed, his voice filled with awe. "This is the key to the labyrinth." The key unlocked a hidden door behind the altar, revealing a narrow, winding staircase leading down into darkness. The air grew cold and damp, carrying the scent of earth and decay. I hesitated, fear gnawing at me. "Elias, I don't know." He took my hand, his grip firm and reassuring. "I understand your fear, Aurora. But we're so close. I can't do this without you. I need you." His words, his trust gave me strength. I couldn't abandon him now. I couldn't let him face this danger alone. I had to be brave, for him, for us. "I'm scared, diary," I wrote that night, a hand trembling. "I'm terrified of what lies ahead, but I love him, and I know deep down that this is bigger than just us. This is about doing what's right, about fighting for a better world. I have to try. I have to be strong." We descended into the labyrinth, armed with a lantern and a growing sense of dread. The tunnels were narrow and claustrophobic, the walls lined with damp stone. The air was thick with the smell of mildew and forgotten secrets. We followed the winding passages, guided by a series of cryptic symbols etched into the walls. Each symbol was a clue, a piece of the puzzle that Herr Schmidt had left behind. As we delved deeper into the labyrinth, the sense of danger intensified. We could hear the faint sounds of footsteps echoing through the tunnels, the unmistakable sound of someone following us. The Nazi agents were closing in. The final chamber was a vast, cavernous space filled with ancient artifacts and forgotten relics. In the center of the chamber, resting on a stone pedestal, was a small, intricately crafted box. It was made of polished silver and adorned with delicate carvings of gears and cogs. This was it, the encryption device, the key to unlocking the secrets of the war. But as Elias reached for the box, a voice shattered the silence. "Don't move." Two men emerged from the shadows, their faces grim, their guns pointed directly at us. They were the Nazi agents, and they had found us. The stakes had never been higher. Our love, our lives, and the fate of the world hung in the balance. "Okay, my dears, gather around. Let me tell you what happened next." It was a night etched forever in my heart. A night where love and loss danced together in a cruel, unforgettable waltz. After days of deciphering the clockmaker's riddles, Elias and I finally stood before it, the entrance to the secret chamber. The air grew thick and heavy, laden with the scent of damp earth and something else, something metallic and faintly ancient. The passage leading down was narrow, barely wide enough for two people to walk abreast. We descended into the earth, our footsteps echoing in the oppressive silence, broken only by the frantic thumping of my own heart. The air grew colder as we went deeper, a bone-chilling cold that seeped into your very soul. The walls were rough-hewn stone, slick with moisture, and I could feel the weight of the earth pressing in on us, a claustrophobic embrace that stole the air from my lungs. Elias held my hand tightly, his touch a small beacon of warmth in the encroaching darkness. The clockmaker, bless his ingenious soul, had left one final puzzle. At the end of the passage, a massive stone door blocked our path. Etched into its surface were intricate gears and cogs, a miniature replica of the clock tower mechanism itself. Elias studied it for what felt like an eternity, his brow furrowed in concentration. Finally, with a triumphant grin, he located the hidden levers. With a series of clicks and groans that echoed through the chamber, the stone door shuddered and slowly began to glide open, revealing the chamber beyond. The chamber was circular, its walls lined with shelves filled with strange artifacts and forgotten relics. In the center, bathed in a soft, ethereal glow emanating from an unseen source, sat a small, unassuming wooden box. It was plain, unadorned, almost disappointing in its simplicity. But I knew, instinctively, that this was it. This was the artifact we had been searching for, the key to unlocking the secrets of my family's past. As Elias reached for the box, a sudden, sharp crack echoed through the chamber. Then another, and another, gunfire. The Nazi agents had found us. They burst into the chamber, their faces grim and determined, their weapons drawn. The air crackled with tension, the soft glow of the artifact box now overshadowed by the harsh glare of their flashlights. "Halt!" "You are under arrest," one of them barked, his voice cold and devoid of emotion. Elias pushed me behind him, his eyes blazing with defiance. "You will not take this," he said, his voice firm despite the tremor in his hands. The agents opened fire. The chamber erupted in chaos. Bullets ricocheted off the stone walls, sending sparks flying. I ducked behind a shelf, my heart pounding in my chest, fear gripping me like a vice. Elias fought back with a ferocity I have never seen before. He used the labyrinthine layout of the chamber to his advantage, darting from shelf to shelf, using the artifacts as cover. He knew the tunnels better than they did, and he used that knowledge to confuse and disorient them. I knew I couldn't just hide. Elias was fighting for both of us, for the artifact, for our very lives. I remembered the passages, the hidden alcoves the clockmaker had built into the walls. I knew this place like the back of my hand. I found a heavy candlestick, a relic from some forgotten age, and charged from behind the shelf, swinging it with all my might. I managed to knock one of the agents to the ground, giving Elias a precious few seconds to regroup. But the odds were stacked against us. There were too many of them, and they were relentless. Elias was wounded, a crimson stain blooming on his shoulder. He stumbled, but he refused to fall. He grabbed the wooden box, clutching it tightly to his chest. "Aurora, you must go," he shouted, his voice strained with pain. "Take this, protect it, promise me." I shook my head, tears streaming down my face. "I won't leave you, Elias." "You have to," he insisted, his eyes pleading. "This is bigger than us. This artifact, it must not fall into their hands." He pointed to a hidden passage, a narrow opening concealed behind a tapestry. "Go, I'll hold them off." "No, Elias, please," I begged, reaching for him, but he pushed me towards the passage, his grip surprisingly strong despite his injury. "Go, Aurora, I love you." And then, with a final, desperate act of courage, he turned and faced the Nazi agents, drawing their fire away from me. I hesitated for a moment, torn between my love for Elias and my duty to protect the artifact. But I knew what I had to do. With a sob, I turned and plunged into the darkness of the hidden passage, the wooden box clutched tightly in my hand, Elias's final words echoing in my ears. I crawled through the narrow passage, the rough stone itch scraping against my skin. The sounds of gunfire and shouting faded behind me, replaced by the deafening roar of my own grief. I emerged into a small, hidden alcove, a secret escape route that the clockmaker had built for just such an emergency. I was alone. Elias was gone. The pain was unbearable, a searing agony that ripped through my soul. I collapsed to the ground, sobbing uncontrollably, the wooden box digging into my chest. He was everything to me. We were supposed to have a life together, a future filled with love and laughter. But now he was gone, sacrificed to the darkness of war and the greed of those who sought to control the past. That amidst the grief, a spark of determination flickered within me. Elias had entrusted me with this artifact, with this mission. He had given his life to protect it. I would not let his sacrifice be in vain. I would protect the artifact. I would uncover the secrets of my family's past, and I would make sure that Elias's memory lived on, that his courage and his love would never be forgotten. I wiped away my tears, stood up, and looked at the box. His sacrifice was not the end, but a new beginning. It was a promise, a vow, etched in blood and tears. I would honor his memory, and I would carry on his fight. The artifact was more than a relic. It was a symbol of hope, a testament to the enduring power of love in the face of unimaginable darkness. My heart ached with a pain I never knew existed, but I knew I couldn't succumb to despair. Elias's sacrifice gave me a purpose, a fire burning within me, a mission that would define the rest of my life. I had to discover what secrets this box held, what legacy it carried, and I would do it for him, for us. The journey ahead would be long and dangerous, but I was no longer just Aurora. I was Aurora, keeper of the artifact, protector of the past, and bearer of Elias's love. And I would not fail him. Here's the next part of the story, child. It's a difficult section, full of sorrow, but it's important to understand what Aurora went through. It shaped her, you see. The world swam back into focus slowly, each breath a ragged, painful reminder of Elias's absence. The cold stone of the labyrinth floor pressed against her cheek, a stark contrast to the warmth that had so recently radiated from him. The artifact heavy and strangely humming, lay clutched in my hand. I didn't remember grabbing it, only the echoing crash of the collapsing tunnel and the blinding fear that followed. I scrambled to my feet, every muscle screaming in protest. The labyrinth, once a place of intrigue and shared adventure, now felt like a tomb. I had to get out. I ran, stumbling through the familiar passages, the artifact bumping against my hip, a constant painful reminder. The air grew thicker, heavier with each step, mirroring the crushing weight in my chest. Finally, I burst through the hidden entrance, the afternoon sun gliding after the perpetual twilight of the labyrinth. I didn't stop running. I ran until I reached the familiar dirt road leading back to the village, my lungs burning, my legs aching, my heart shattered. Reaching home felt surreal. The familiar scent of Mama's baking, usually a comfort, now felt like a cruel mockery. The laughter of my siblings playing in the yard grated against my raw nerves. How could they be so carefree when my world had just crumbled? I slipped inside, unnoticed, and stumbled to my room. The diary. It was the only place I could truly be myself, the only place where I could scream into the silence without shattering the fragile peace of my family. I collapsed onto a bed, the artifact rolling onto the floor with a dull thud. I couldn't even look at it. It was a reminder of everything I had lost. The tears came then, a torrent of grief that threatened to drown me. I clutched the diary to my chest, burying my face in its pages. "Elias," I whispered, my voice choked with sobs. "Elias, what am I going to do?" The words blurred as I wrote, pouring out my pain, my despair, my guilt. I wrote about the labyrinth, about the sacrifice, about the promise I had made. I wrote about the unbearable emptiness that had taken root in my soul. The diary became my confidant, my silent witness to the unraveling of my world. The official story was a simple one. Elias had been exploring the old mine shafts and had been caught in a cave-in. A tragic accident. Everyone mourned, but no one knew the truth. And that was the hardest part, child. Carrying that secret, that immense weight alone. Mama noticed the change in me. Of course. I became withdrawn, quiet. I lost my appetite. I spent hours locked in my room, poring over Elias's notes, staring at the artifact, trying to understand. "Aurora, are you all right?" she'd ask, her brow furrowed with concern. "You seem distant." I'd force a smile, a hollow imitation of my former self. "I'm just tired, Mama." Elias, he was a good friend. Papa would pat my shoulder, his eyes filled with the sorrow I knew he reserved for his own losses. He was a good lad, gone too soon. Their words were meant to comfort, but they only deepened my isolation. They couldn't understand. No one could understand. The artifact sat on my desk, a constant silent challenge. Elias had entrusted it to me, and I couldn't fail him. But I didn't know where to start. His notes were cryptic, filled with symbols and references I didn't understand. One afternoon, driven by a desperate need to find answers, I ventured into the village library. It was a small, dusty place filled with the scent of old paper and forgotten stories. The librarian, a kind elderly woman with twinkling eyes, greeted me with a warm smile. "Looking for something specific, dear?" she asked. I hesitated, unsure how to explain my quest. I'm interested in local history," I stammered. "Old legends, folklore, anything about the mines." She led me to a section tucked away in the back, filled with forgotten volumes and faded maps. I spent hours there, poring over books on local geology, mining history, and regional folklore. I searched for any mention of the artifact, any clue that might shed light on its purpose. It was slow, painstaking work. Days turned into weeks and weeks into months. I felt like I was stumbling in the dark, grasping at straws. But with each small discovery, each fleeting glimpse of understanding, my determination grew. I learned about the ancient civilizations that had once inhabited the region, about their beliefs, their rituals, their connection to the land. I discovered that the mines were not just a source of ore, but also a place of sacred significance, a place where the veil between worlds was said to be thin. Slowly, painstakingly, I began to piece together the puzzle. The artifact, I realized, was not just a trinket, but a key to unlocking something ancient, something powerful, something that had been hidden for centuries. The grief was still there, a constant ache in my heart. But it was slowly being replaced by something else, a sense of purpose, a burning desire to honor Elias' memory and fulfill his mission. I was no longer just Aurora, the village girl. I was Aurora, the keeper of a secret, the guardian of a legacy. And I wouldn't let Elias down. His sacrifice would not be in vain. I would find out the truth, no matter the cost. Evenings were spent poring over Elias's research, the diary by my side. His meticulous notes, once bewildering, slowly began to reveal their secrets. I learned about the constellations, the phases of the moon, and how they related to the artifact's power. I deciphered his cryptic symbols, discovering they were based on an ancient language spoken by the people who had first mined the region. Sleep became a luxury. I was driven by an insatiable hunger for knowledge, a desperate need to understand what Elias had given his life for. The artifact pulsed with a faint energy as I studied it, as if urging me forward, whispering secrets in a language I couldn't quite grasp. The solitude was crushing at times. I longed to share my discoveries, to unburden myself of the weight of the secret. But I knew I couldn't. The artifact was too dangerous, the truth too volatile. I had to protect it and protect my family at all costs. As I delved deeper into Elias's research, I began to realize the magnitude of what he had uncovered. The artifact was not just a key, but a weapon that could be used for good or evil. And there were others who knew about it, others who would stop at nothing to possess its power. I was no longer just honoring Elias's memory, I was protecting the world from a terrible danger. The weight of that responsibility settled heavily on my shoulders, but it also fueled my determination. I would not fail. I would not let the artifact fall into the wrong hands. I would see Elias's mission through to the end, no matter the cost. A train rattled onward, each click of the wheels a hammer blow against my already fractured heart. Leaving Willow Creek felt like tearing myself away from Elias's very essence, from the whisper of his memory in the rustling leaves of the ancient oak. But I knew, with a certainty that chilled me to the bone, that I couldn't stay. Not if I wanted to honor his sacrifice, not if I wanted to protect the secret he entrusted to me. My destination was a city I'd only ever glimpsed in photographs. Bustling, anonymous, a place where a young woman with a broken heart and a dangerous secret could disappear. I found a small room above a bakery, the air thick with the comforting scent of bread and, less appealingly, the ever-present aroma of coal smoke. It was sparsely furnished, a narrow bed, a rickety table, a single chair, but it was safe, or as safe as I could hope for. The days that followed blurred into a relentless cycle of research and learning. Elias's diary became my Bible, its pages filled with his elegant script and cryptic diagrams. He had meticulously documented his research, hinting at the artifact's true potential, but much remained shrouded in mystery. He called it the key, but it was a key to what? I spent hours in the city's grand library, poring over books on cryptography, history, and even mathematics, subjects I had previously found utterly dull. I felt Elias beside me, guiding me with his patient hand, whispering encouragement when I felt overwhelmed. I learned of ciphers and codes, of ancient languages and hidden meanings. The artifact, I slowly began to understand, was not merely a device for encrypting messages. It was something far more powerful. One sweltering afternoon, buried deep within the library's archives, I stumbled upon a faded manuscript detailing a lost technology, a way to intercept and decipher enemy communications. The artifact, it seemed, could be used to break the Nazi codes, to anticipate their movements, to turn the tide of the war. Elias had known. He had always known. The realization hit me with the force of a physical blow. This wasn't just about protecting a secret, it was about actively fighting back. It was about using the knowledge Elias had given me to save lives. But knowledge alone wasn't enough. I needed skills I never imagined I would possess. I started small, observing people, noticing their habits, their tells. I learned to blend into the background, to become invisible. I frequented cafes, listening to conversations, piecing together fragments of information. I studied the way people moved, the way they glanced over their shoulders, the way they spoke in hushed tones. One evening, while pretending to read a newspaper in a crowded cafe, I overheard two men speaking in German. They were discussing troop movements, mentioning a planned attack on a nearby town. I didn't understand everything they said, but I caught enough to know it was important. My heart pounded in my chest. I had to do something. But what? I couldn't simply walk up to the authorities and tell them what I'd heard. They would never believe me, a young woman with no credentials, no proof. I remembered a passage in Elias's diary, a description of a simple substitution cipher. Using the artifact, I painstakingly deciphered the scraps of information I had overheard, translating the coded message into a clear warning. I then anonymously delivered the message to a trusted contact Elias had mentioned, a member of the underground resistance. Days later, I read in the newspaper that the planned attack had been thwarted. The German forces had been ambushed and forced to retreat. A small victory, perhaps, but a victory nonetheless. And it was mine. The work was exhausting, both mentally and emotionally. The solitude was crushing. I missed Elias terribly. His laughter, his warmth, his unwavering belief in me. Some nights, I would lie awake in the darkness, tears streaming down my face and wondering if I was strong enough to carry on. But then I would remember his face, his sacrifice, the promise I always made to him. And I would find the strength to keep going. The threat was ever present. I knew the Nazis were still searching for the artifact. I saw their agents everywhere, lurking in the shadows, their eyes cold and calculating. I learned to recognize them, to anticipate their movements, to avoid their case. One afternoon, as I was leaving the library, I noticed a man watching me. He was tall and imposing, with a scar on his cheek and eyes that seemed to pierce right through me. He followed me for several blocks, his footsteps echoing in the narrow streets. My heart raced. I knew I had to lose him. I ducked into a crowded market, weaving through the skulls, disappearing into the throng of people. I changed my appearance, pulling my scarf over my head, lowering my gaze. I doubled back, taking a different route home. When I finally reached my room above the bakery, I collapsed against the door, gasping for breath. I had evaded him, but I knew he would be back. I was living on borrowed time. That night, I dreamt of Elias. He was standing in a field of wildflowers, his eyes shining with love. He smiled at me and said, "You are stronger than you think, Aurora. You can do this." I woke up with a renewed sense of purpose. I knew I couldn't let fear paralyze me. I had a mission to fulfill, a promise to keep. I was a secret keeper, a self-taught spy, a lone warrior in a war against darkness, and I would not fail. The artifact was more than just metal and gears. It was a legacy of love, a beacon of hope in a world consumed by hate, and I would protect it, no matter the cost. My life had become a carefully constructed dance, a delicate balance between knowledge and action, between hope and despair. Each day was a test, a challenge to my will and my resolve. But with every coded message deciphered, every enemy plot foiled, every close call survived, I grew stronger, more confident, more determined. The grieving young woman who had left Willow Creek was gone, replaced by a resourceful and capable agent, driven by a love that transcended death and a commitment to a cause greater than herself. The journey was far from over, but I was ready. I was ready to face whatever lay ahead, knowing that Elias was with me, always. The war child, it was a beast that wouldn't be tamed. But even beasts, no matter how fearsome, eventually tire. Aurora, bless her heart, she became a whisper in the enemy's ear, a shadow dancing at the edge of their vision. The locket, Elias's locket, amplified her intuition, sharpened her senses. She wasn't a soldier on the front lines. No. Her battlefield was the quiet hum of radio waves, the coded messages that crackled across the airways, but subtle shifts in enemy movements. Using the knowledge gleaned from the artifact, she worked with the Allied intelligence, a phantom in their machine, feeding them information that seemed almost impossible to obtain. She could anticipate their strategies, foresee their ambushes, and guide the Allied forces away from traps toward victories that seemed to defy logic. She never knew the full impact of her contributions, only snippets gleaned from hurried conversations and grateful nods. A convoy saved, a bombing raid averted, a key location secured. Each small victory was a flicker of hope in the overwhelming darkness. She pored over maps in dimly lit rooms, the locket warm against her skin, Elias's presence a constant comfort and guide. The weight of responsibility was immense, crushing at times. Sleep was a luxury she could barely afford, haunted by faces she had never met, lives she was fighting to protect. But with every successful transmission, with every piece of intelligence that proved vital, a sense of grim satisfaction ballooned within her. He was honoring Elias's memory, using the curse of the locket for good, turning darkness into light.
Then, slowly, the tide began to turn. The whispers of victory grew louder, more frequent. The newsreels, crackling with static, showed scenes of liberation, of cheering crowds, of weary soldiers finally returning home. And finally, the day arrived. The day the war ended. Aurora remembered the moment vividly. She was in a small, cluttered room, surrounded by radios and maps, the air thick with the smell of stale coffee and cigarette smoke. The announcement crackled across the airwaves, a simple statement that carried the weight of 1,000 battles, 1,000,000 tears. The war is over. A profound silence descended upon the room, broken only by the soft hiss of the radios. Aurora felt a wave of exhaustion wash over her, so complete that she almost collapsed. The tension, the fear, but constant vigilance that had been her companions for so long suddenly vanished, leaving a void in their wake. She closed her eyes, clutching the locket in her hand. Elias, she thought, it's over. We did it. The relief was overwhelming, but it was tinged with a deep sadness. The world was celebrating, but Elias wasn't there to celebrate with her. The victory felt bittersweet, a triumph born of immense loss. She knew she couldn't stay in the world of espionage and secrets.
The war had changed her, hardened her in some ways, but it had also shown her the importance of human connection, the power of hope, the enduring strength of the human spirit. She yearned for simplicity, for peace, for a life lived in the open, bathed in sunlight. So she packed her meager belongings, the locket carefully tucked away in a small, velvet-lined music box, and she left. She didn't return to the life she had known before the war. That life was gone, lost forever in the ashes of the past. Instead, she sought out a new beginning. She found it in a small, forgotten town nestled in the foothills of the mountains. It wasn't Willow Creek, but it possessed the same quiet charm, the same sense of community, the same promise of peace. She bought a small cottage with a sprawling garden, filled with flowers and herbs, and she began to rebuild her life, one seed at a time. She dedicated herself to helping others, particularly those who had been affected by the war. She volunteered at the local school, teaching children to read and write. She visited the veterans in the nearby hospital, listening to their stories, offering a comforting presence in their moments of pain. She helped families who had lost loved ones, offering a shoulder to cry on, a helping hand in their time of need. She found solace in the simple routines of daily life, tending to her garden, baking bread, reading books by the fire. She learned to play the piano, filling her cottage with music that echoed the joy and sorrow of her past. She made friends with the locals, sharing stories over cups of tea, laughing and crying together. Slowly, the shadows of the war began to fade. The nightmares became less frequent, the memories less painful. She learned to live with the past, to accept it as a part of her, but not to let it define her. The locket remained in the music box, a constant reminder of Elias and their love. She would take it out from time to time, holding it in her hands, feeling the warmth of his presence. It was no longer a source of fear or dread, but a symbol of hope, a testament to the enduring power of love. Years passed. The young woman who had been thrust into the world of secrets and espionage transformed into the wise, gentle woman I knew as Grandma Aurora. Her face, etched with the lines of time and experience, radiated kindness and serenity. Her eyes, once filled with fear and uncertainty, now sparkled with wisdom and understanding. She carried herself with a quiet dignity, a sense of inner peace that seemed to emanate from her very being. She was a pillar of the community, a source of comfort and guidance for those who sought her out. She was Grandma Aurora, the woman who had seen the darkness and emerged into the light. And now, looking back, I understand. I understand that her seemingly simple life was built upon extraordinary experiences, upon profound sacrifices. The diary, the locket, the stories she never told, they all revealed the depth of her character, the strength of her spirit, the enduring power of her love. She wasn't just a grandmother. She was a survivor, a warrior, a beacon of hope in a world that had often seemed hopeless. She was a testament to the fact that even in the darkest of times, love can endure, hope can prevail, and new beginnings are always possible.
She had turned her cursed inheritance into a blessing, not for herself, but for everyone around her. And that, child, is the true measure of a life well lived. The last page of the diary rustled softly as I closed it. The scent of old paper and dried lavender, a constant companion these past weeks, seemed to cling to my fingers. A ghostly handshake from Aurora across the decades. For weeks, I had been lost in her world, her struggles, her quiet acts of defiance that, in their cumulative effect, had shaped not only her life, but mine as well. Now, sitting here in the fading afternoon light, this silence felt different. It wasn't the heavy, expectant silence of anticipation, but the peaceful quiet that follows a long, heartfelt conversation. The diary, more than just a collection of words, was a map to Aurora's soul. It wasn't a treasure map promising riches, but a chart of her heart, its hidden valleys of sorrow, its towering peaks of courage, and the steady, unwavering river of love that flowed through it all. I had known my grandmother, of course. I had the fragmented memories of childhood visits, the scent of her rosewater perfume, the warmth of her hand in mine. But the woman revealed in these pages was a stranger, a heroine forged in the crucible of history, a woman whose strength I could only begin to comprehend. I remembered the stories she used to tell me when I was a child, tales of mischievous fairies who protected the innocent, brave knights who fought for justice, and resourceful princesses who outsmarted wicked sorcerers. They seemed like simple bedtime stories then, whimsical flights of fancy. Now I saw them for what they truly were, metaphors, veiled glimpses into her own extraordinary life. The fairies represented the kindness and resilience of the people who helped her survive. The knights were the ordinary men and women who resisted oppression. And Aurora herself, with her quiet determination and unwavering spirit, was the resourceful princess who navigated a world filled with danger and deceit. She hadn't just told me stories. She had been preparing me, subtly, for the complexities of life. The artifact, the supposed treasure that had initiated this quest, seemed almost insignificant now. The real treasure wasn't a tangible object. It was the profound understanding I had gained of Aurora, of her life, and of myself. Her legacy wasn't the secret she guarded, but the silent strength she embodied, the wisdom she shared through her stories, and the unconditional love she poured into every aspect of her life. It was the way she had faced unimaginable hardship with grace and dignity, the way she had chosen hope over despair, and the way she had always found a reason to believe in the goodness of humanity, even when surrounded by darkness. I thought about the moments in my own life when I had felt overwhelmed, when I had doubted my own strength. I remembered the times I had given up too easily, convinced that the challenges before me were insurmountable. Now, knowing Aurora's story, knowing the depths of her resilience, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. Her experiences, though vastly different from my own, resonated with a universal truth: that we all possess an inner strength we may not even know we have, a capacity for courage that can be awakened in the face of adversity. There were parallels between her struggles and my own, not in the specifics, but in the underlying themes. We both faced moments of uncertainty, moments where we had to make difficult choices, moments where we had to choose between what was easy and what was right. Aurora's diary had shown me that even in the darkest of times, it is possible to find light, to find hope, and to find the strength to carry on. It was a reminder that the choices we make, no matter how small they may seem, can have a profound impact on our lives and the lives of those around us. Reading her words had been an emotional catharsis, a release of pent-up anxieties and unresolved questions. I had always felt a vague sense of inadequacy, a feeling that I wasn't living up to my potential. Aurora's story had helped me understand that true strength isn't about being fearless or perfect. It's about being willing to face your fears, to learn from your mistakes, and to keep moving forward even when you feel like giving up. The diary itself had become more than just a book. It was a personal treasure, a tangible link to my past, a guide for my future. I would keep it safe, not as a relic of a bygone era, but as a living testament to the enduring power of the human spirit. It was a reminder that even in the face of unimaginable hardship, love, hope, and resilience can prevail. Looking back, I understood that she wasn't trying to burden me, but prepare me, give me an advantage in life. She knew that the world would always have challenges and wanted me to be ready. Her stories, her diary, they were all a love letter, a guide, a secret weapon.
I realized that we all carry within us hidden stories, untold narratives that shape who we are. These stories may be buried deep beneath layers of fear, doubt, and self-criticism, but they are there nonetheless, waiting to be discovered. And just as Aurora's story had transformed my understanding of myself and my family, so too can our own stories transform our lives and the lives of others. Inspired by Aurora's example, I felt compelled to share her story, to ensure that her legacy of love, sacrifice, and resilience would continue to inspire generations to come. The world needed to hear her voice, to learn from her experiences, and to be reminded of the enduring power of the human spirit. The curse, it turned out, wasn't a curse at all, but a blessing in disguise, a catalyst that had led me to uncover a hidden truth and to discover the extraordinary woman who had shaped my life in ways I had never fully understood. It was time to let the world know about the silent strength of Grandma Aurora. It was time to share her story. Here, at the end of our tale, stands the enduring truth of Aurora's life, a testament to the quiet strength that balloons even in the darkest of times. Her story, etched in the yellowed pages of that hidden diary, wasn't just about a cursed inheritance or a stolen love or even the long shadow of war. It was about the unwavering flame of hope, the defiant spirit that refuses to be extinguished, and the extraordinary capacity of the human heart to find beauty and connection even amidst profound loss. It was about the choices she made, the sacrifices she endured, and the legacy of love she unknowingly created. A legacy that has now, in a way, become ours. If Aurora's story, this echo from the past, has touched your heart, if it has stirred something within you, then it has served its purpose. These memories, these whispered secrets, are meant to live on, not just in my heart, but in yours as well. Because stories like Aurora's, they remind us that we are all connected, bound together by the threads of history and the shared experiences of love, loss, and the enduring search for meaning. The story isn't truly over, you see. It continues, woven into the fabric of your own life, your own experiences, your own choices. Visual cue, gentle, uplifting music swells. Images of blooming flowers and sunlit landscapes are displayed briefly. Now I know these stories can be heavy, like the weight of old photographs in your hands. But they are also precious, like the scent of lavender that lingers on a summer breeze. And just as a gardener tends to their most delicate blooms, so too must we tend to these memories, allowing them to nourish our souls and guide our steps. Visual cue, a close-up shot of the diary, gently open to a page with a faded photograph of Aurora. And so, my dears, if you found a connection to Aurora's story, if it has resonated with you in some way, I ask you please leave your like. It's a small gesture, but it tells me that her voice, her spirit, continues to be heard. And if you're interested in hearing more stories from the past, tales whispered down through generations, then please subscribe to the channel. It helps me keep these memories alive to share them with others who might find solace and inspiration in them. Visual cue, a call to action graphic appears on screen. Like this video, subscribe for more stories. Sharing these stories, the stories of our ancestors, isn't just about preserving the past. It's about understanding the present and shaping a better future. It's about recognizing the sacrifices that were made, the battles that were fought, so that we might live in a world where love and kindness triumph over hate and despair. Aurora, she lived through times that tested the very limits of human endurance. She witnessed horrors that no one should ever have to see. And yet, she never lost her faith in the power of love, her belief in the inherent goodness of humanity. That, my dears, is a lesson we can all take to heart. And the secret of the inheritance, that curse that turned out to be a blessing, it wasn't about the land or the money or the jewels. It was about something far more valuable, something that cannot be bought or sold. It was about the strength of the human spirit, the power of forgiveness, and the enduring bond of love that transcends even death. The real treasure was the love Aurora held for those she cared about. She sacrificed her own happiness, her own dreams, for the sake of others. And in doing so, she created a legacy that continues to inspire, a legacy that reminds us that even in the face of unimaginable adversity, we can choose to be kind, we can choose to be courageous, and we can choose to love. Perhaps the greatest discovery of all was that Aurora wasn't defined by the hardships she faced, but by the grace and resilience with which she overcame them. The diary wasn't just a recounting of events, but a window into a soul that burned brightly, despite the darkness that surrounded it. It was a reminder that even in the depths of despair, hope can take root and blossom, offering solace and guidance to those who dare to seek it. Now, as I close Aurora's diary for the final time, I feel a sense of peace, a sense of gratitude. Her story has been told, her voice has been heard. And I hope with all my heart that it has touched you as deeply as it has touched me. Before I say goodbye, I want to leave you with one final thought, one final question to ponder. Aurora held so many secrets within her heart, so many joys and sorrows, so many hopes and fears. What secret do you think Grandma Aurora held dearest to her heart? What single thing above all others defined her life and her legacy? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I would truly love to hear your perspectives. And remember, my dears, the stories of the past are not just echoes from a distant time. They are living, breathing reminders of who we are, where we come from, and what we are capable of. So embrace your own stories, cherish your own memories, and never forget the enduring power of love, sacrifice, and the legacies we leave behind. Good night, and may Aurora's spirit guide you always.